long days happen. Long days happen. I had a long day. You've had a long day. I appreciate you making the time at the end of the day to talk to me about the things that are really important.
Well, explain to me what are those things that are really important.
Well, we're talking about this short notice rematch
Oh,
between the Wonderkind, the man who is single handedly saving boxing,
yes.
Jake Paul, and the former welterweight champion of the UFC, longtime welterweight champion of the UFC, Tyron Woodley. And it's an interesting fight, kind of, for me. And I don't know how you feel about the fight, but I well, that's kind of why we're here, I guess.
Well, when it comes to it, I'm really happy. To be honest, there's a better one versus Tommy Fury fight that was going to happen. Tommy Fury, to be honest, was going to destroy Paul. So, way better boxer, way better training, so on and so forth, than actually going to it. That being said, when it comes to the Paul, the people that he trains with, they're amazing people. The Serrano sisters, if you're not familiar with the Serrano sisters, you got to look them up. Or if you're not familiar with them, look them up right now. God, amazing boxers. These girls are amazing. So both the Paul brothers are training with really, really good boxing people. But again, it's it's going to be boxing, but they're training with a good group, and things like that. They're an awesome group, and again, those girls are some of the best boxers I've ever seen, the man or woman. The Paul brothers are actually training with some good people. So it's going to be interesting to see. But also going into what you were just talking about before I got into this feed, was you're talking about the where they had that in the contract where he couldn't knock him out type of thing, right? That's bullshit.
There's that. And according to Tommy Fury's camp,
Yeah.
Jake Paul wasn't willing to do any drug testing.
Yeah.
Now, they're not testing for cocaine, right? They're not.
No, not at all.
Not at all. Like that's not.
Yeah, nose candy. You have fun.
Yeah, knock yourself out, kids. However, I mean, we're talking. I'm assuming they wanted to test for performance enhancement.
And you think the Pauls might actually be taking steroids? No, not at all. They wouldn't do things like that. No.
Well, here's where it gets weird. So Tyron Woodley is saying now that he chose not to knock out Jake Paul in the first fight versus
Well, to be honest, no offense to Tyron Woodley, that I didn't even watch the whole fight, but the whole thing is looking like he wasn't doing shit.
I mean, and I was talking about this earlier. So Tyron Woodley isn't a boxer. He's got knockouts of like the Josh knockout. Like he can hit really hard, clearly, but Josh Koscheck is never known for.
Yeah.
I believe that is another of those. Jake kind of set up to win. He's fighting a guy he said himself, like he looks good on his record. He's a big buff guy who is a former champion, but he doesn't really have the skill set that Jake Paul, for a year and change of training like really hard, has put himself in a position where he can potentially be a former UFC champion.
Yeah. My issue is, I'm really happy that Tyron Woodley was able to step up onto this and kind of actually make up for what happened before. But here's one of the things about this is Tyron Woodley is kind of coming into this I think to fail because again, like you were talking about being a UFC champion, so on and so forth, and those type of things. Boxing's a little bit different. If you box, there's a way different type of way that you actually interact and things like that. It's easier getting knocked out if you actually don't actually have to worry about takedowns and so on and so forth and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see on the second fight. It really is. I'm really happy to see that they got the second fight, considering he had the tattoo and stuff like that put on and things like that. So it gives him a chance to redeem himself. But to be honest, I think it's going to be more of the same. I think Tyron Woodley is not going to do anything. Zero. So, and if he does knock the guy out, if he does do something like that, it would surprise the shit out of me. I actually think it's on the other side. I actually think Paul actually might knock out Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley, not a good chin, I'm just going to say. But and if he wants to challenge that, come spar me. I'll show you. But when it comes to this, I really honestly think that this is not going to be really good for Tyron Woodley. This is going to be more mud in the face.
I agree. I mean, his power in MMA it stemmed from his wrestling.
Okay? Well, power is one thing. Boxing's not about power, though. People don't realize when it actually comes to boxing, it has nothing to do with power. There has nothing to do with power. It has everything to do with actually where you have the application of doing so. So if you're just winging right hands, which he doesn't even have a good jab, not even a decent jab, not even a good jab. When it comes to it, he's not going to be able to actually prevent himself from being hit. On that first fight, it was really bad. Both of them not good boxers. Now when it comes to this next fight, I think it's actually going to be better for the Paul side, because I know of the trainers and watching the stuff they did. I'm a big fan, like I said, the Serrano sisters and stuff like that. The people that he's training with, they're way better boxing coaches. They're just amazing coaches. So to be honest, I think you're going to see an improved Paul, and you might actually see Woodley, or excuse me, get Tyron Woodley seeing to get him a slap.
Yeah, it's not a fight that excites me. And it's not because I don't want to, who wins or who loses isn't exciting. What is exciting to me is how is the actual fight. I think you're right. I think Tommy Fury would have really hurt Jake Paul. And I think that the fight wouldn't have done a whole lot for Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
Right? For Tommy Fury, who is a boxer, who's the brother of the heavyweight champion, who has some really good training partners, going there with Jake Paul is a very much a different experience than Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley is, he's like me. He's got the little baby T-Rex arms, and I think that you've got a longer guy, Jake Paul, who's may or may not be on performance enhancers versus a guy who is, he's kind of priced himself who's pushing 40.
Right there is going to be the thing about it. You got to realize that this is not really a professional fight. This is an exhibition. So, to be honest, if anybody wanted to on these type of fights, they could actually go and they could pump themselves full of whatever they want to. It's exhibition. It doesn't matter. So also, like when it comes into the contract, right? So the contract, people got really upset about the contract before, but it's an exhibition fight. This is not a professional fight. It's not. So a professional fight actually has to be part of a sanctioned body to actually do so. Yeah, whatever you want to think about sanctioning bodies and so on and so forth. But when it comes down to this, as much as this is really an interesting fight, are we back live?
We're back live.
All right, cool. I got my coffee. I'm good.
Good. I'm still slurping on mine.
All right, where were we?
Well, okay. So Dom Merriweather made the point that Tyron Woodley's reach isn't ridiculously small. And honestly, I'm not 100% sure what the size difference is among the two of them. But if I'm not mistaken, Paul is a little bit taller, not necessarily substantially taller, but the taller guy.
Yeah, taller reach is going to be part of it, but also when it comes to the application of the boxing. So when it comes to pure power, you can't match Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley just has power. When it actually comes to being able to put that into some hands, that's a difference. I'm looking forward to see what happens on this one.
Um, I think like you mentioned earlier that you're going to see progress in the part of Paul. I don't know where Woodley's been training his boxing.
Oh well, he actually been training a lot of good places. It's just like a wild card. He was working over at Wild Card for a long time. I'm trying to remember the gentleman he worked with, not Freddie Roach. He worked with Freddie Roach, but there's a particular person he working for a long time. But when it comes down to it, a lot of it is just a small little exchanges on that. Yeah, like when it comes to more power punching than actually setting things up. So I want to go. My biggest thing is actually thinking about the characteristics of the person themselves, as what their thought and what they're actually going behind themselves, what their goal is, right? So when it comes to Tyron Woodley was throwing a big shot to a takedown. He wasn't sitting there to actually try and have an exchange with people. So that's different when it actually comes to boxing. Yeah, I've been punched in the face way too many different times. But when it comes down to it, you have to understand that there's just a different way to deliver when it actually comes when a boxing match versus a MMA match. Okay, so when it comes to it, is people don't realize that if you depend upon throwing a big shot to get a reaction to go for a takedown is different, which is amazing for MMA, which MMA being the truest form of everything. Um, uh, which is fantastic. But when it comes to boxing, where boxing you have these other set of rules, where gentleman rules, where you have to actually stay in a certain type of way and do those particular type of things. You know, you got to realize you can't rely on that. What happened with Tyron, what I feel, and this is just my personal opinion. It's when it comes to this. But he just got where he could throw a heavy shot where they actually had to deal with that shot. You know, like when it comes to like he had a heavy rear kick, he had a big overhand, things like that. Those particular things, doing that. But the constant worry was the takedown. So now you go into boxing where you don't have to worry about the takedown at all. So the takedown is now neutralized, which was one of the biggest things that he actually had, being such a prolific wrestler and so on and so forth. Me dealing with a lot of people that have, especially with MMA, when it comes to people, is if you neutralize a takedown where you can't actually just use that as an option, guess what? They don't have anything else. So that's what my feeling is with Tyron Woodley. With Tyron Woodley, if you actually, even though he wasn't a big guy that you can actually say that he was like a Khabib that was trying to take people down and control them all the time and so on and so forth, but the threat of the takedown was one of the biggest things for Tyron Woodley that is not going to work for boxing.
Yeah, I go back to the Tyron Woodley Kamaru Usman fight when
Yeah.
Kamaru Usman.
Well, let's go Colby Covington as well.
Tyron,
It's virtually the same fight. Just the outcome was different. But yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, and um, yeah, it sucks that it's not a fight. It sucks that this isn't in a cage. It sucks that there's not kicks. It sucks that there's not takedown.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, yeah, I think Tyron Woodley is kind of set up to take an L. But at the same time, like this has been a time of unexpected wins.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, like you're talking about like Pena and stuff like that this weekend, right?
Talking about that, I'm talking about Oliveira.
Hmm.
Not necessarily. I'm sorry. Glover Teixeira.
Ah,
And even then, Dustin was still the favorite to win in his fight with Charles. So, although I realized I'm calling it the Brazilian possum, which is when a Brazilian fighter takes a hit and they go down, and you are convinced to get in their guard. Let me get in their guard. Let me get in a dangerous position because they're damaged. And then bad stuff happens. It happened to Fedor against Fabrizio Verdum, and I think that is one of the things that led to the fight going the way that it did on Saturday night with Charles Oliveira. Although the second round, I did have a question for you about as a referee. Now, the kind of been the notorious glove hold in the second round that Charles had on Dustin.
So, Joe Rogan was, just screaming about it. Yes, it was an illegal thing, but to be honest, if you're winning or losing a fight, grabbing somebody's glove, how much does it matter? So that's always what I would ask people. Yes, that was a foul. That was a complete foul. He should not have been grabbing a glove. I want to say this before that as well is Dustin Poirier was done before then. Dustin Poirier took some shots to the body, and people don't realize shots to the body on how much it hurts. Shots to the body that most people register is just that front kick to the body. People don't realize on how much that hurts and how much that takes away from your gas tank. I think that Dustin Poirier was actually having a lot of issues with his cardio after the attacks to the body. So, when it came to the grabbing the inside of the glove, yeah, the referee didn't do a good job. He didn't do a good job at all because that shouldn't happen. That being said, though, Dustin Poirier was just he was going to end up losing that fight anyways. He was so compromised. He was attacked to the body really well. So anybody out here on the internet, and stuff like that, if you want to really take somebody out, attack him to the body. Don't hit him to the head. Just attack him to the body. You'll get more and more out of it just attacking to the body. Every time you hit him to the body, that's actually putting money in the bank that you can cash in. So every time you see that front kick, go back and watch that fight again. There's beautiful front kicks every single time, and people don't realize because they don't want to celebrate it. They want to celebrate other different type of things. But those kicks to the body was everything in that fight. And I think Dustin Poirier was just to the point where he was so compromised that he couldn't even breathe. He couldn't do anything. His liver, his spleen was already been kicked and so on and so forth that he wasn't able to do shit. So to be honest, hey, cheers to Charles Oliveira. He is the champ, and he should be the champ. And everybody should be talking about him, not talking about Dustin Poirier.
Roger that. Roger that. I would also point out that the submission happened in the second round, and it was a controlled. Anyway, yeah. Thank you very much for your insight. So, what are your predictions then on Saturday night's fight?
On this one, I would love just to put some mud in the Paul's faces when it comes to this. But to be honest, looking at training, I just want to look at on how people are training. I just that's always one of the biggest things. You can only fight how you train. Okay, so if a good coach can actually look at you and actually see how you're training, you can actually predict a little bit more how what your outcome is actually going to be. So right now, looking at the training, one from Tyron Woodley, and then two from actually going into watching Mr. Paul. I'm leaning to Mr. Paul. To be honest, like watching it is like, okay, he has not changed much because he still's in the thought that in that first fight that he won because he rocked him with a single punch. He landed a single punch there. Other than that, he virtually wasn't throwing any punches. Go back and watch the fight, you see that Tyron Woodley wasn't throwing shit. You gotta have punches to actually set it up. You want to act. Okay, so I tell this a lot to a lot of people I train. Professional fighters, think about like Floyd Mayweather and so on and so forth. The best fighters on the planet are hitting at 30%. Okay, that means that they miss 70% of their shots. Okay, and I'm going to back this up with this amazing quote at the end. But when it comes down to it, is they're sitting there throwing more than they land. Okay, so you think about 30%. The best fighters on the planet only land at 30%. Okay, so when it comes to Tyron Woodley, he's always thinking about landing one shot. No, that's bullshit. When it comes to fighting, when it comes to do it, saying accumulation is what's going to be the most important part. right? So when you actually land more shots, if you're always looking for one shot, yes, you might get that knockout, and that's great and looks good for fans. But when it actually comes to the person that fights, you have to worry about attrition, and you have to go through that attrition. Okay, so when it comes to this, you have to be able to throw multiple shots. So you go back to that first fight. What did Tyron Woodley do? One of those rounds, didn't he throw less than like 20 shots? I mean, literally in 3 minutes, 3 minutes of a boxing exhibition, he only threw like 10 shots. I mean, that's fucking stupid. No offense. Go ahead.
So I will throw in. I would also mention that, like, if there was in fact a contractual obligation to not knock Jake Paul out, it does take away a little bit of, of going for the head, of going for power shots to somebody's face. If
So here's the other part I want to actually talk about. Thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt. I do apologize, Bill. But when it comes to this, um, so contractually, he wasn't able to actually fight. So he wasn't able to fight contractually. So what he did was steal money away from everybody else, because everybody billed this as a fight, right? But it's not a fight if you can't actually hurt the other person. But that person in this contract, so to speak, if you look at this contract, that the Paul brother was able to actually hurt him as more than what Tyron Woodley was able to actually do. Now, here's the other thing: is they're stealing money from people. You're stealing money from people by the fact that you're saying that, okay, we're going to make this fight. You have to pay this pay-per-view and do stuff, this type of stuff. That's the most dishonest bullshit on the planet. Okay, so yeah, that is just beyond ridiculous. So if you put that in a contract where you can't be hurt or knocked out, but you want to actually have a fight, then you shouldn't be fucking fighting. Excuse my language. But when it comes down to it, you shouldn't be that way. When it comes to fight, you want to actually go against another human being to see if you have the test to actually do so. Now, you have to put in a contract to make sure that, oh, I don't get knocked out. Fuck that. If that's in the contract, you shouldn't have signed that contract. Going back to Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley, yes, he was on the bad side of this thing. But when it comes to why would he sign that contract, then also why the hell does he get a tattoo on his own body that he can't actually get rid of to I love Paul, to actually do this type of shit where he signed a contract where he knew he couldn't win? That's some bullshit.
Yeah,
So all of us are sitting here actually concerning ourselves about this silly nonsense for no fucking reason, instead of actually thinking about real fights. I want to see a real fight. Or let's even go on to this. So let's I want to see on like here in our state. In our state, we have people that are fighting like motherfuckers. They don't get any type of credit. They don't. Okay. So I got to tell you, everyone here, just go out there and fight your fucking heart out and love this sport as much as I love this sport, considering on how much that I'm trying to do this stuff. I love the fact that there's more attention onto the sport because of the Paul brothers. But if they're put in the contracts that they can't be hurt, then they shouldn't be in there. And we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't even be having this conversation.
okay. So then let's change it, because this one just came up in the last day or two, and I talked about it last night live. Ali Abdelaziz, manager of Habib,
Yep.
manager of Justin Gaethje, reached out to Tony Ferguson publicly and said, "Tony, what are your thoughts on grappling Habib? No jokes. I'm not picking on you. This is 100% serious. This is business." El Kukui apparently threw up the El Kukui on one of his multiple platforms, but it looks like we might get that match, but not necessarily in the way that we were expecting, which
Fine
by
this point.
okay.
Um, you know, uh, one thing about Khabib, I love Khabib, and I love him and his style. Essentially he's by the numbers. I mean, like you do this, you do that, and things like that. The great thing that is about Tony is he's a wild card, right? So he's a person that breaks the system. Okay, so if we're in the Matrix, he's one of those people that would make you want to send agents out to him, considering the Matrix movie about to come out. But we can review that later. I'll join you on the review if you want to do that one. But I'm totally game for that. But when it comes to that, that's the reason Tony is so important. I love seeing unorthodox fighters. Me, I'm a really technical guy. Yeah, I just am. Yeah, just I break things down technically and so on and so forth. But you got to realize when you throw something in there that's completely different from everything else, a great person like a Khabib would lose to a person that's crazy like Tony because they don't understand this curveball that's coming in. Does it make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. You have one person who is, very much through the process, like um, going back to Wiley and that last Rose fight when Pat Barry said, "Be a professional." You knew a takedown was coming. You knew
Yeah.
you knew that a control position was coming. You knew something very technical, very specific, and very dominating. Something that was a strong suit to Rose was going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you end up, in a position where you have someone who is very by, that you do this to get to this to get to this, and then this gets you to this. You attack the legs, and then you go up all the way until you get the limb and thing. But you have Tony, who is batshit crazy. He is absolutely a wild card. Now here's the thing: also numbers. He got he got really good at jazz because he was really good at by numbers.
I agree with that. Hold on,
So
I'm in a spot in my gym where I'm not getting the greatest connection. I just need more coffee. I do apologize. Can you hear me?
what? That's okay. That's more coffee is important. This I'm more excited to see them at this point than I think I ever was to see them.
That makes sense.
I the idea of them being kind of cool 10 years ago, but the reality is that they're both at a point where uh, I don't necessarily want to see either of them take an unnecessary shot. But Charles or Tony Ferguson had a very good point. He said he didn't tap to Charles Oliveira. Yeah, Tony is awesome for everything. Uh, yeah, he's someone again. I don't necessarily. I, I don't need to fight Michael Taylor. What I do see him do is roll around on the mat and take someone's like limb off. That sounds cool to me. Um, like how do takedowns work?
No, I'm interested to see what actually happens on this. So it would be great when actually they get into to doing this if it actually happens. Has it been confirmed that they're actually going to do this grappling match?
No, but this is talk among Ali, and then this is Tony Ferguson putting
Well,
out a thing.
normally if Ali's talking something, he's getting it from somebody else, meaning that that's probably true. So
Ali's not an idiot. Ali's a very very smart tactical. Um, there's a reason that he manages the people that he manages. Now, interesting news that did come out is, and one of the rumors about Kevin Lee is that he might be going to Eagles MMA. So Bellator has, like all of the other organizations, LFA, PFL, Bellator, they've all apparently shown interest in Kevin Lee, but he's interested in going to Eagles MMA, which is Habib's organization. I can't hear you, Coach. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Sorry, half the building I get good reception. The other one I don't. I was gonna come over here to the front seat here. But yeah, well, it'd be interesting. I'm actually kind of happy. Like if you've seen their initial stuff when it comes to Eagle MMA and stuff that they're doing, seems like they're doing a good job. I'm really happy whenever I see fighters actually get involved to actually command promotions and actually put it in a certain way, because normally they take care of fighters, they take care of the entire promotion. They're not trying to make money. What they're trying to do is put the fights on the right way, because they ultimately are fans. They're not trying to get money out of it. What they're trying to do is get a good experience. So I actually think that's a good thing, to be honest. But when it comes to somebody like Kevin Lee, which he's so tremendously talented, and I really like to actually see what's been going on. If he's been kind of jumping around camps and doing things like that. He's been working his ass off to actually do things like that. But I think it's a good home. I think he's going to be paid well. Then that's the ultimately, when it comes to a fighter, you only have so many fights. You really honestly have so many fights that you do in front of a crowd. So the ultimate goal for every single person, if you're hearing me on to this, is you're going to go out there. You want to make money on each fight that you want to, if that's what your goal is, to make money out of the fight. If your goal is just to learn that you can be a tough person, then your money doesn't matter. Okay. But when it comes to this type of stuff, like you see a Kevin Lee or somebody like that, you got to find where the money's at, and the money's going to be more there than he was finding in the UFC. Um, a lot of people lately like to comment, or they like to say about the pay structure of the UFC, but to be honest, you get paid more in the UFC than you'd ever get paid in any other promotion. So anybody that thinks otherwise is stupid. So if everybody wants to attack the UFC about what their pay structure and stuff like that is, then we need to go to the local organizations and say, hey, you're only getting paid $100, yeah, win or lose, to get your fucking face, pummeled. Okay, so it comes from the bottom, not the top. The top, you're actually getting paid really well, but on top of it, you have no clue on how many different things that can actually happen when you actually make it to the UFC. So one of the things I'm tired about actually hearing about, like, oh, people are not paid well in the UFC versus other professional sports. Okay, so let's go professional sports. So you think one day you're gonna wake up and just fight, right? And now you deserve millions of dollars. That's bullshit. Well, think about that kid that played. Well, let's go with tennis, right? You played tennis from your infancy, right? And you've been playing tennis, playing tennis, playing tennis, playing tennis. No money, no money, no money, no money. And then by the time you hit about 30, you're actually making money, because the fact is you've been playing tennis since you were 3. Okay, so most people, when it comes to fighting, they just get into it later, and then
Hey, Coach. I lost the last.
oh, you lost that last little bit, man. That was profound, man. I dropped so much wisdom, and you missed it, dude. Gosh, let me go to this chair. This chair might have better internet connection. All I was saying is, like, there's a lot right now when it actually comes to the people complaining about shit when it comes to pay, about money and fights and so on and so forth. But doesn't matter. Let's get back into what we're talking about. Grappling between Tony and Khabib, which I am not. I'm on?
I see you and I hear you.
Cool. I can hear you. But
I agree. The pay structure needs to change, and I think there are a bunch of different ways to do it. And we can have that discussion right here, real quick. And I think a big part of it would be sponsored win bonuses. Like if you, I think a guarantee more than $100, because let's be honest, inflation is a mother lover, and it doesn't love your mother. And
No, not at all.
$100 last year is, doesn't feel like $100 this year. And it's feeling a lot more like a 20 every. So, so with that being said, I think that, and I think one of the things that you'll find is that sponsors, individual sponsors, will probably be willing to throw an easy 300 or 400 dollars. They know it's going to a right. If they know the main win bonus is the Mike Tires championship belt, and the prize is on top of whatever they're getting paid an additional $5, and maybe 250 or 300 for a co-main. But like starting just kind of like the UFC, if it's 10-10, then it's 2-2, right? It's at least 2-2 or 150 and 150. But there's got to be a better way to do it. Just start there.
So the way this changes, and the easiest way to change, and I'm sorry to say this, is for fighters to not wanting to go to fight, refuse to fight unless you feel like you're actually being compensated the way that you should be. That being said, though, you have to realize that if you say that I'm not going to fight other than if I get paid this money, you're probably not going to fight. Okay, so it's going to be a crazy game going back and forth. So the thing that sucks for most fighters is they have to dealing with the promoter, because the promoter will tell them is like, nope, this is the way it is. But if you want to actually get your name out there and do things, guess what? What do you have to do?
You got to fight. You got
to fight. Okay, so that's where the problem is. So the pay structure when it actually comes to fighting, and I've dealt with a lot of people when it comes to training and fighting them, and or not fighting, but training them for fights. They don't realize that in the beginning of all this shit, it shouldn't be about making money. You shouldn't be trying to make money fighting. There's no money in fighting. There's zero money in fighting. Zero money in fighting. Okay, when it comes to it, when you make money in fighting is because you are just that good of a product. So what you have to do is create yourself as a product that can be traded. Okay, so if you want to make money as a fighter, you have to turn yourself into a product. So here's the thing: if I want to wash my windows with Windex, and I need to buy Windex, and Windex is better, but then I can get this other product that doesn't work really well, and doesn't really clean the windows, but like it's way less money and do things like that and stuff like that. Am I going to buy that, or am I going to buy Windex?
I mean, we're living in it. We're living in tough times, my friend.
Yeah.
I. So then, what is the aside from being forced to think of yourself as a product? Because and that's the absolute truth, right? Is you're the person that has to sell you, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do it for you, at least not initially, right? You have to create the image that they are going to sell. And that's how you end up with Sean O'Malley's, and that's how you end up with Colby Covington's. But you know what? They're getting right. Sean O'Malley was getting paid, and he was unranked.
Yep.
He was on the main event without a ranking. All right.
Well, here's the thing about that when it comes to it, like you talk about the most beautiful thing about that was him saying unranked champ, right? Him wearing his jersey, unranked champ, right? So again, Bill, I'm sorry to interrupt. I interrupted you again. I do apologize. But when it comes to that, he created this. He created this. Nobody else created this. Nobody else other than himself created that. So let's go into Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor created himself, and we all love and hate him at the same time. Now, Sean O'Malley has figured out love and hate him. Guess what? He's going to actually be around. So you have to create yourself for what you want to as a fighter if you want to do this shit. Okay? You got to realize you can be the most amazing fighter on the planet and not even have to worry about this stuff, because, to be honest, that's the reason I don't fight. To be honest, I don't want any attention. To be honest, the only reason I'm doing this because I love you, Bill. You're one of my favorite people. To be honest, I really right now loathe the.
Yeah.
Oh shit! I'm getting a. Oh no, you're back. You're back now. Okay, I thought I lost you.
I thought
Oh man.
you.
But the only reason I do this, Bill, I would never do this for any other people because I'm an introverted person. I really hate being around people. To be honest, I just love helping people. But when it comes down to this, man, is like when it comes to this, you have to create a personality that one, if you want to make money, that people love. That's say 25% of it. Let's actually put it on the percentage. The other part should be 75% of people you want to see you lose. If you really want to be a fighter that makes money, you want to be a person that that people want to see lose. So not you don't want to be a person that people like. You want to be a person that people hate, which is crazy. So let's think about Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather, when he was Pretty Boy Floyd, when he was just the amazing boxing prodigy that he is, nobody loved him at all. Nobody loved him. He was knocking people out left and right. Everybody in the lightweight division, so on and so forth. Nobody cared about it. Nobody did. You know what happened is when he actually tried to speak up and say is like, oh no, fuck that. Is like I'm gonna tell you what type of person I am. And when he told us what type of person he is, that's when people cared. Okay? So fighting in itself is just a vehicle that you could drive, but anybody can drive that vehicle. You got to decide on where that vehicle goes, left, right, sideways, so on and so forth. So you can decide on how much that want to be. You have to decide on how you want to try and orchestrate yourself that way. So when it comes to this fighting business, which this is a really, to be honest, not a very great business. You got to love this shit. And if you don't love this stuff, where you could do this in your sleep, then you shouldn't be picking up gloves whatsoever.
Roger that, Coach. I've got to run and do husband and family stuff. I know you've got students, you've got a family, you've got classes. I appreciate you taking the time and um, giving me some information. I'm also an introvert. I don't like leaving the house. I found a job that meant I didn't have to leave the house. All
Buddy,
right,
you got to
and
show me what the job is, man. No, man, you got to help me out. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, hey, Bill, we keep talking about it, but dude, when are we gonna roll, man? We've never rolled. We never sparred. Hey, I keep offering. You can punch me in the face as much as you want. You're gonna try. You're not gonna do really well. But come on, dude.
terrible job. It would be a terrible, terrible job.
When are you coming up
So
to Anchorage?
you piece me up. And you could go
No,
straight.
I don't piece nobody up. Everybody beats me up. I just let them have fun.
Oh, man, I'm getting winded thinking about it. We'll make it happen soon, early in the new year or so.
Oh, dude, we totally record it and everything. You put on your podcast, whatever. You can sit there and you can just beat me up. It'd be fun.
I'll be a blast. It will be an absolute blast. Um, Coach, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your insight, as always. Your bees, knees, ankles, and wrist. Um, Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you, brother.
Any fights? Are there any fights coming up?
There's a lot. There's Thursday night fights that actually happen here on Thursday. I think this Thursday I'll be refereeing it. Be the last one before they take their break before January. So anybody that actually wants to get a fight, is today Wednesday? Yes, Wednesday. So anybody that wants to actually try and get a fight for Thursday night fights, go over to I think it's China Garden right now to go do weigh-ins and come out there and have fun. Yeah, say if you have a spat with somebody, whatever, it's fun, just a fun night of boxing. And well, boxing and MMA, but whatever you would like to do, but go out there and weigh in, and you literally could probably fight your own mother. But yeah, when when it comes to this, there's a mix of really, really good fighting and just fun fighting. What I mean by fun fighting, people that just don't know what the hell they're doing, they just want to try and throw hands at each other. But go out there and try and get your weigh-in. It's going to be Thursday night fights coming up tomorrow night. Weigh-ins are tonight.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your energy again. Thank you so much for your insight. You have the best evening ever. Oodles, I guess.
No,
That's
sounds good. Sounds good. So
right.
no, I'm looking really forward to punching you in the face one day.
I'm
One
ready.
day, I'm gonna punch you in the face. It's gonna happen.
It's
But
gonna
think
be
about it.
big.
Oh
I'm a
God,
little,
and we'll turn each other into pretzels. It'll be fun, man.
yeah.
Murder
Yeah.
yoga all day. Murder yoga all day.
Yes. All right, Coach. Sounds good. Have a great day, my friend.
Yeah, I love you, man.
Love you too.